Hi everyone, it's Ben. Just before we get into this episode, I thought I would give you a heads up that we talk a bit about having babies, and one of the things that we touch on is pregnancy loss. So if that's not something you want to listen to right now, then I thought I would just let you know in advance. But anyway, on with what is otherwise a very fun show. Yeah, I think
Hello. We're recording, yeah. So yeah, that's my off podcast victory, disgusting victory.
That's actually brilliant, and no one will ever know about it because it was recorded off pod.
No.
Interesting things said by uninteresting people. You're hosted by Ben and Tom. Interesting things said by uninteresting people.
Hello, and welcome back to Interesting Things Said by Uninteresting People, where we talk about interesting things so that you don't have to. My name's Ben, and as always, I'm joined by the far more self-healing half of the podcast, Tom.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you, man. Lots of things and stuff happening, but how are you?
Yeah. Oh, well, man, I'm good. I'm far more satisfied after healing the well, I'd say you say gross. We won't go into it, but, no. You know, you say gross story. That was a very satisfying story.
I'll explain it in another podcast when it's all healed over.
Yeah, one day we may revisit this back down into the mists of time. Oh, dude, how are you then, man? What have you been up to?
Yeah, I'm good. I've had a lot of, there was an Apple event this week, I guess last week on Wednesday, so it's been really, really busy on the YouTube front. Bit busy enough where I've had to push off some other work until the end of next week, which is good. So yeah, I'm really cool for that. I'm really excited for that because I think it could be on this week coming. I think could be a good week for growth. Hoping to be so. Is this
so? Apple have stoked your YouTube coal a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. There's some stuff which I'm excited to put out, which should be good. Should be good because I don't know if you saw, but I did a video on Wednesday after that event. It was on Thursday, and I'd been sick. I'd been last week. Actually, on last time we recorded the podcast, I had a bit of a throat, and then that got worse and worse, and then I lost my voice pretty much completely. But the day after, it came back enough for me to record, but I watched that video back and I look really tired. You can tell my eyes are just half open and my voice is still a bit raspy.
Oh no. Are you sure? Hang on, mate. Are you sure it wasn't an electronic disease transfer? Because I know we joked about this on the last episode. That would be insane. Well, it actually happened. It's
like a placebo, but the wrong sort. So I've been busy. How about you?
Mate, I've been okay. I think when we recorded last time, I was waiting to find out whether or not I had COVID, and I didn't have COVID.
Hooray.
Yay!
That's good.
Yeah, it was. I was pleased. I mean, it was a weird old result because I mean, I know I'm not going to sort of retread that old ground, I guess, but the results amongst the people who might have been affected didn't really make sense.
Yeah,
because there was one positive, loads of other negatives, so it's a bit. Yeah, I mean, you know, we believe the tests, but it also makes you wonder, if there is something that's happened, like there's a false positive or a false negative somewhere.
Did you go to the leisure centre to have your PCR?
I did. I went down to the COVID village, the big tent village.
I went there as well because I was feeling pretty rough, so I thought I'd better just be sure. Because I obviously had this wedding gig as well. I was like, can't take COVID to a wedding.
Yeah, sure.
That's a present nobody wants. But yeah, it was very. I know the feeling in there. It's all very apocalypsy. I thought
it is. It's like the zombie response center.
Yeah,
a little
big
bit.
Time.
Yeah. Did you? I mean, when you went in, did you have people watching you do the test, or did they kind of just put you in and leave you to it? And
they put me in and left me to it.
Does that seem a bit weird? Because we got left on our own to do ours. Do you think they kind of at least cast an eye over to make sure you're not just?
I thought there'd be someone there PPE on and do it for you, open up sort of thing.
Yeah.
I sanitized my hands about 5 times. I was like, I've just done it. Are you sure you want me to do it again?
Yeah, sure.
Sanitize your hands and you can go. It's like, I've literally just done it. My hands are still wet from the sanitizer.
My hands are wet from the dewy mist of vomit that I nearly spewed while I was doing the test.
Man, I got my results so quick, though. I got it the next morning, which was cool.
I take it negative.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. So mate, fuck it. It was positive, and I went anyway. I decided I'd just go spread it around a little bit. Have you been tested by someone else before?
No, never.
I've had both.
Yeah.
And I can tell you what, I definitely prefer being tested by someone else.
Do you?
Yeah, 100%.
Why?
Yep. Well, you know, I didn't even feel it. Maybe they did it wrong. Maybe they did it completely wrong, but I wasn't really aware of it, because I kind of thought, I was thinking to myself, I'm going to gag. I'm definitely going to gag. So I was focused on, I guess, not gagging, I suppose. And you know what? I hardly even felt it. It was just done. It was over in a second.
Maybe they got the technique down.
Maybe it's when I'm doing it myself. I'm just kind of going, come here, have it, you bastard.
Yeah. Get it in your gob.
Oh, man. But that's a job that no one really wants, isn't it?
No, it's a shitty job.
Oh, dude, that's not cool. That's not cool at all.
Imagine the gobs you'd see. Gross gob.
I mean, gross gob. Oh, man, I'm trying not to now. But yeah, dude, I mean, so because we were negative, but because the guy I work with was positive, we had a week of no work. So sat around at home, not particularly going many places, but even though being double vaccinated, I'm not required to self-isolate.
Yeah.
I still kind of, we didn't exactly go gallivanting around.
No, yeah. It's like you're not going to take the piss.
Well, no, exactly, yeah. And of course, because Claire was negative as well, and she hadn't been in contact, so she was like, I'm going to work, it's fine, she's off to work.
Yeah, fair enough.
So it's been a weird old week. Yeah, I've been filling it with things to do. I painted the walls outside my house, which,
nice.
With the help of my brother, which is... oh man, that was about the most exciting thing that happened to me this week. About the most exciting thing. I'm waiting for a builder to come back and finish off a couple of holes that he needs to drill in a wall, and that's about it. I hung up a house number on my wall, which is obviously the most exciting thing in the world. But I made the mistake of making sure that I hung the house number straight, without checking that the wall was straight.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, dude, I had the spirit level out. I was like, I'm going to get this right. Yeah. I'm not going to have finished this job and then do like a sloppy hang. But I didn't obviously decide to like look at how the number looked when I sort of test fitted it. Because I tell you what, man, that wall is not straight.
No, what number is it?
Just off. It's a number 4.
Oh, so you can't get away with like a 3, or a 0. You're all good with 0.
Yeah, 0 looks fine. Man, 4's got too many horizontals in it for it to like horizontal and vertical. So yeah, I hung that number twice, which was, first time to practice, second time to get it up. I'll tell you what, man. Actually, I'll tell you this. I don't know whether this is how much this is worth talking about, but because I know you've watched these, but what I did watch, just tying it into what we talked about last episode, I watched the Noclip documentaries about Hades.
Oh, okay.
Dude, they're really good.
Well, I haven't seen them yet.
Oh, man, I thought... maybe I'm getting mixed up. I thought you'd watched a documentary or two about Hades. Oh, man.
No, I think I mentioned, about the voice actors. They do a few different characters and all that sort of stuff.
Sure.
They're a small team and all that sort of thing.
Well, you know what, man? I can recommend it. I mean, I don't know if you've watched... Yeah, man. I don't know if you've watched any other Noclip stuff, but that... I mean... In general, Noclip is a pretty decent channel. Yeah, they're all crowd supported, like patron supported. They just make long form video game documentaries. I know they did one about Half-Life that I watched. So these are like an hour and a half long documentaries. If you find one about a game that you like,
I've just looked it up. This looks well up my street.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I'm going to add it to my watch later.
I think they do shorter stuff as well. But what I liked about the Hades one, I mean, obviously I've been playing it, so it's kind of, it's nice to get a bit of a background, and find out a bit more about it. But it's the way that it's giving you a behind the scenes while it's in early access. Yeah. So you get to see like a small game studio putting together something that's a good polished product at the end. And it goes right the way through from first early access launch right the way through to them launching on Steam and then to the Switch.
Because they did like quite a few different launches, didn't they? It was like open public public launches and stuff.
And that's
quite a lot of videos on it.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's kind of what makes it interesting, because they I think there's 6 episodes. Each one dives into maybe a different aspect of the creation process. But at the same time, it's semi-chronological. Yeah. So you get to see like the audio director, who's this one guy who is he's like, oh, I'm trying to learn this guitar part for the theme, for this area music. I'm trying to get good enough at playing it that I can record it. And then you watch him kind of figuring out the drums. And then in the last episode, he's up for an award for sound design in a game or music in a game.
That's so cool.
So yeah, dude, it's inspiring to see like a small studio who have had like a little bit of success. With reasonably successful other earlier games.
Yeah, I was going to say all the games are pretty highly regarded.
I think so, man. I think they're almost, maybe there's a little bit of them being more downloaded now. Yeah. Like as well, like fans of Hades have gone back and gone, oh, what else? What are your other games like? Sort of thing. But yeah, dude, I can recommend it. I mean, it's at the end of the day, if you're not into documentaries and you're not into video games, then it's probably not going to do anything for you. But yeah, man, it's and they're kind of well made as well. They do ask the right questions. They cover the right things.
That's a little Ben's rec right there.
It's an unexpected Ben's rec, mate. I wasn't anticipating about talking about it.
No,
to be honest,
it's good. I haven't subscribed. I've added a couple. I've added the first Hades one to my watch later and the Dishonored one because I really like Dishonored. Oh, cool. So I'll check those out. That looks awesome.
Can I ask you a question? How long is your watch later list on YouTube at the moment?
I can tell you, it's got I'd say, it's probably pushing about 40 videos on my watch later. But some of them are watched, I just haven't taken them off.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's probably about 20 I could take off, maybe more.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I use the watch later button all the time because if I see something I like, I don't trust YouTube enough to push it back to me.
Yep.
Like if there's something in my home box, I'm like, well, make sure you save it because it'll be gone.
Yeah. But, I'll definitely find 35 minutes to watch that at some point in my life. Yeah, definitely. Some point.
I usually have that sort of stuff on if I'm like writing a script or something. I just have it on. Almost like having the TV on, when you're just not really doing, if you're not watching the TV, but it's on.
Yeah, sure.
I use it for that sort of stuff, especially if I don't put it on the main screen. Like sometimes I have my iPad just sitting off to the side playing stuff.
Yeah.
And that can be quite good.
See, I've started doing something similar with podcasts now. I started using Podcast Addict. I don't remember whether I mentioned this maybe on a previous episode. Maybe
I know of it, but I don't think you've mentioned it.
Sure. Well, I moved away from Google Podcasts because obviously I'm on Android.
Yeah.
So I'm not using like Apple Podcasts or what have you. But I moved on to Podcast Addict. And it makes it really easy just to add, like to have like a playlist, like a watch later or a listen later sort of playlist. And man, I've started listening to some like much more one-off episodes. Like if I see on Twitter that someone's guested on a podcast, it's so much easier now to kind of go, all right, yeah, I'll quickly add that podcast to the list. And I'm not trying to sell an app here, this is not like sponsored by. But yeah, man, I feel a bit more comfortable now because that FOMO has been addressed a little bit.
Nice.
It's a bit easy just to add like, I'll definitely listen to that at some point.
I feel that way of podcasts is there's so much good stuff to listen to. It's almost like, where do you even start? Like there's so much. I like the ones that I listen to I've just found by sheer randomness, and I worry that when I'm listening to it, it's like, should I be listening to one that's better and I just don't know about? But it's funny.
Dude, I meant to ask you, what was the name of that podcast that you recommended to me? Because this is going to sound like I didn't listen to it, but I did. That one about games.
Yeah, how did this get played?
That's it. That's the one. That was really good. Like I listened to a handful of episodes of it, man. I'll probably come back to it. It's really good.
They're quite funny. I was going to say you may have noticed in some of them, but they don't do it all the time. But sometimes they have like a cold open, and because they're like comedians, they'll do.
Sure.
Like there's an episode on Hotel Mario, and they'll kind of pretend they're in the Hotel Mario. It's like, welcome to the front desk, and they just go through this whole like it's sort of off the cuff, like nothing of that is written down. I think they add in the sounds later. But yeah, some of the things they come up with are just so weird, and it's like, is this the Hotel Mario? Like, yeah. cool, I want to stay in Lakitu's cloud. And she's like, well, this is a hotel. We don't have access to his personal accommodation. And the guy's like, well, I thought, but this is the Hotel Mario. Yes. Okay, well, that's where I want to stay. It's like, well, we can't get you there, sir, because it's not up for rent. There's little things like that they do, which are quite funny.
Oh man, I'll have to go back to it. I listened to like a handful of them. I need to. Yeah. I'm gonna have to have another check.
Dude, they've kind of moved off now. I think they've gone to like a different service. So because I listen to everything on Spotify, and now I can't listen to any back episodes. You only get like 10 on there at a time.
Oh,
which sucks because I went to listen to some older ones and they weren't there, and I was like, so I have to like find different ways of doing it, which sucks.
Yeah. Dude, not to get too deep into this too much, but what do you think it is that is making podcasts so popular at the minute? I mean, is it just like on-demand radio? Is that why it's popular? Like Netflix is popular with on-demand video.
I don't know, really. I think it's just because there's something for everyone on podcasts now, and
I mean, we're not for anyone, mate.
No, oh god, no.
There's also stuff for no one.
Yeah, stuff for no one, which is what this is. Stuff no one should listen to.
Sure.
But no, yeah, it's probably just that and combination of people. I think the pandemic's made a lot more people consume content in general.
Yeah.
So people are listening to podcasts more than they ever were, and they're probably recommending it to mates and that. But yeah, maybe something like that.
It's easy to forget as well. I mean, even just the name podcast, I mean, coming from iPods.
Yeah, crazy.
Seems mental now because no one will ever think of that ever again in the future now. Now we have a whole word for it.
It's a household name.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. Dude, I feel like we should jump to the gravy.
The gravy and the meat. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, dude, it might, like I said to you before, it might even end up being a shorter episode, but we've actually got a kind of theme handed to us today. Not handed. Sorry, I mean handed to us by the universe, not handed to us by someone else. Yeah. Like these, we do have our own ideas. Because I have news, and I thought it was worth talking about like the story behind that news as well. Yeah. Maybe it might be, I don't know, it might be uninteresting, but that is the name of the game. Because we're going to be joined by a third member of the podcast in the future. And she's going to be about a foot high, and she's going to sit down by my feet in a cot, like while we're trying to record desperately,
and essentially not say much,
and not say a lot. No, not say. Well, I don't know. Who knows, mate? I think she's probably going to come out going, "Hello and welcome to." Yeah, dude, we're having a kid.
Ben's having a baby.
Well, not me personally, which is, that's, if you're going to pull out old jokes, that's the best one to start with.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, we're having a baby coming along in 10 weeks.
10 weeks? That's not long at all.
It's really, 10, 12 weeks, that sort of time.
Is that before Christmas, after Christmas?
That puts us before Christmas.
Yeah. So it puts us
at the
know
end.
My months. I just wanted, I promise. It's like, it's like January and then February again and then October.
And then it's March 2. Yeah, I'm sure, yeah.
March returns.
Dude, she had the good grace to arrive, or to plan to arrive at least a little bit away from Christmas.
Yeah.
So we don't get stuck into the whole birthdays and Christmas together.
Shout. So the age-old question, Ben, was it planned? Was this part of a bigger plan, or was it like, did it happen? Or
well, dude, it's part of quite a long plan, to be honest. Which is one of the reasons why I thought I'd talk to you about it, and by extension, talk to the limited but reasonable number of people who are listening to this, because it has been an interesting ride to getting to this point, and it's not been the most straightforward.
No.
And without sounding like I don't want to get my soapbox about it necessarily, but it's something that people don't really talk about.
Sure.
So I thought in the spirit of using your family for content, just from word go, like before you even get started, you have to make sure that you're getting ringing good content out of what happens to you. So I mean, we've been trying to have a kid for like a while.
Sure.
Like, like easily 2 or 3 years or so. Like we, what's the expression? We pulled the keeper, like a while ago.
Sure.
And so, we were trying for a kid, which when we're not recording, I might tell you the favorite expression that I heard as an alternative for trying for a kid. Because that is where I draw the line of things that I'm going to say on this podcast.
Sure.
But yeah, dude, so we tried for like a while. We tried for like a long, months and months to get this to work. And for something that you keep getting told in school, like, be careful because otherwise you're going to accidentally make this happen.
Yeah.
Mate, it's sometimes, I know for some people it does. For us, it was taking a long while to come through. Like, to the point where it was maybe like a year after we'd been trying or waiting to see if it happened, where we were like, okay, well, we're not particularly worried about it, but
sure.
we should go and just go and ask the doctor and see if there's anything like going on, like see what's up, because if there is something up, then the sooner you know about it, the better that you know about it. So obviously Claire went for like the test that she can go for, just to make sure that she's all right. I went for the test, which is, it's sperm in a cup.
Let's not beat about the bush.
Let's not beat about the bush.
Ben.
Well, actually, there was plenty. Well, I'll tell you what, mate, because I had to do it a couple of times. They ask you to repeat the test,
right? Like
a few months apart. So not to skip ahead in the story, but both of us perfectly normal.
Good.
I'm not ashamed. They said that the worst is that I'm slightly towards the lower end of normal, but we're still well within like the normal. Yeah. They're like, that's the worst. That's the worst thing they could find wasn't a bad thing, if that makes sense. Not that I have to stand up for my little guys, but just so you know what the picture was. So I had to repeat this test, and the second time that I had to prepare, to take the sample to the hospital.
Yeah.
That's a precious personal moment, to yourself just before you go. It's not the sort of thing you want to do while you got the plumber in fixing the boiler.
No.
So you're like, all right, mate. Yeah, I'm going out in a minute. I'll just be back. I'll be back in a minute. Head off for a bit of quiet time in the bathroom, trying to be as alone as you can, just trying to have a personal quiet moment while the plumber's, talking to himself, banging on pipes there's a lot of banging on pipes, but while the plumber's, like knocking himself silly in the kitchen.
Oh my God.
So yeah, dude, I've had less embarrassing moments in my life, but anyway, so we had all these tests done, and it was, like I say, it all came back kind of normal,
Mm-hmm.
But going through just even the first kind of bit of this process, because we got like a referral to a specialist to see if there's any other tests they can do just to see what's going on. But something that sort of stuck with me is because Claire obviously had she had some more invasive tests, some quite straightforward tests, but she also did a load of research herself.
Yeah,
she is an absolute champ. With taking the bull by the horns and be like, right, I'll figure this out. Like, I'll see what's going on.
Yeah.
There is so much stuff that girls don't get told about their own bodies. And, I won't pretend to be an expert on a lot of it, but Claire picked up like a couple of books, like Understanding Fertility, like I will put links. If anyone's interested, I will put links in the description. Because I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it's like big, thick books, basically like instruction manuals for women, saying, "Okay, you've probably never been told any of this,
so you're a woman."
No, it is. It's like an idiot's guide to female bodies. It's insane, and I really felt for her. Like not that anything bad happened, but I really feel for girls generally. Because just with other friends and other family, Claire's going, this stuff that I'm reading here, people don't know about this. Without getting into it, but things that are perfectly normal that you might look at and go, oh, I'm really worried that that's happening.
Yeah.
Or okay. Just to put this out there, where people have fertility worries about the vaccine for COVID, because it apparently messes up periods, and like throws that sort of thing all over the place. Well, apparently so can stress. If you're ill anyway, or if you have a particularly stressful week at work, that can like knock ovulation out of whack. And
stress is a silent killer, isn't it?
Yeah, man.
It can lead on to all sorts of terrible things.
100%. But you don't. But I don't know about you, but you don't think about that sort of thing as affecting your body. And so for girls, like it obviously affects stuff that to do with their cycles anyway. So Claire's reading all the stuff, going, I really wish that this had been available. When I, in sex education, because this is sex education. It's not like putting a condom on a banana, and all that kind of business.
Which, let's face it, that's pretty much all we got at school.
Yeah, well, if you're lucky, yeah.
If you're lucky, put the banana on put the condom on a banana. See, I'm even still getting it wrong now. Put the condom on the banana and try not to blow it up and fly it around the class. That's pretty much as far as it went.
If you can resist, I think a lot of the time though, teachers in sex education are like, right, we all just need to get through this.
Yeah,
I know you think this is a piss take, and I don't really want to talk to you about this, but.
Yeah,
here we go.
We're
all going to get through it together.
Get our heads down and just get through it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, dude. We're like in this position where we're thinking, okay, well, we're not being told anything's wrong. So there's not it's not like I've got no sperms or there's something wrong with Claire or what have you. So, which in a way is almost more frustrating because it's like someone saying, "Oh yeah, it's going to work eventually, but you just got to be patient, or what have you."
As I'm sure you know, the chances of it all coming together at once is quite slim.
So slim, so slim, man. I mean, there's maybe 2 or 3 days a month where it might happen.
Yeah, and that's only maybe.
Yeah, and that's a maybe. Yeah, the odds of it are it's incredible when you start looking into it. Like when I guess when you have to, when you're interested in it or what have you, it's amazing how unlikely it is to happen.
Yeah.
And then obviously, with recognizing that for some people it will just happen super quick, it'll be the easiest thing in the world. Yeah. So we're going through all of this sort of thing. And then we ended up going to the hospital and the consultant was, well, to be honest, the first couple of consultants we saw, again, were trying to push us down routes. I'm not normally negative about medical professionals that you see, but they were trying to push us down routes that Claire had kind of had an understanding to say, well, I don't think that's the right way for us to go yet. There are different drugs. There are different drugs that can make you ovulate, for example. Right. And Claire's going, well, I am ovulating because look, I'm checking all this, and I've got all these measurements and things. There's no sign that I'm not. So why? It's almost like that's the first thing they will try by default. Let's give you some drugs that also have all these side effects. Yeah, exactly, man. So, and I'll tell you what. There's also a rather unpleasant element in all of this, which I know was sort of in the news recently or within the last few months, which is that whether you're seeing a man or a woman, I had much more success when I was asking the questions than when Claire was. Yeah, and that's not a reflection on Claire, that's for sure, because she knew exactly what to ask, she knew exactly what she needed, but it took me going, hang on, I think, are you really sure about this? Before it started to click in. Yeah. And I mean, that's difficult sucks. In itself. Yeah, dude, it's really difficult to see.
But doesn't that all kind of come back to just how and we don't want to get all preachy on this podcast, but how men develop the pill which women take, which is arguably a lot more dangerous than the male version of the pill, which basically is non-existent as far as I can tell. I don't even know if it exists. But
no, dude, I can feel that in, because they did develop a male pill, and they went, oh, hang on, no, because it gives you loads of mood swings, it changes your emotions around, it makes you feel really weird, and it's just not very nice to take. And the women kind of went, sorry, what? So we're just going to keep taking it because you just don't want to.
Yeah, and that again, a classic reflection. I think that goes over everything, though, doesn't it? Abortions and pregnancies and all that sort of stuff. There's so much male involvement where potentially there shouldn't be. Yeah,
dude, absolutely. I mean, again, I'm just to throw this in here, I'm not an expert on all of this, but I've got my opinions, right. And I like to think that I'm conscious of it and understanding of the way the world is working for women's medicine here. But I probably make mistakes with some of it, I suppose. But it sucks to have to watch. To be oh man,
I can imagine, especially really to watch it happen in real time.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, absolutely. And because you think, that's surely that won't happen. Or, surely that people don't hold on to these views from like 40 years ago. So turns out they absolutely do. Like they 100% do. So,
I guess it's just what they're taught as well.
Well, it is.
Well, this is in medical school, and this is how it is.
And no one bothers to check. But this is what I mean, because by the sounds of things, so many girls, so many women come out of school not really understanding, how their bodies are supposed to work and how, what the natural way of it working is. So maybe some of those women go into medicine and like, oh yeah, that's just how it is. Yeah. It's. I mean, and not to discredit them. I'm sure there's other reasons as well. But maybe it's just so embedded, this attitude of, oh no, that is just the way the world works.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Who knows?
But dude, so we had these tests done and all the rest of it, and they said, okay, no, there's not one word, but they said, right, but because you've been trying for a year, we can refer you for IVF.
Yeah.
Which is very nice of them, and they're saying, keep trying, because it's not necessarily, doesn't necessarily mean that you won't get pregnant, but you should try IVF as well.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, well that's cool, because I'm nothing wrong with being an older dad, nothing wrong with being a younger dad. I'm like, I'd rather, I'm keen, like, I'm keen to have a kid. Like,
let's do it now.
I'm in the middle of my 30s. I'm like, I don't want to be much older, for me.
No, of course not.
To start having a kid, kind of thing. And so we were both all down for it. We were like, yeah, let's try IVF, And I say we were both down for it. We had a long talk. We lots of talks about it, because my input in this process was
limited.
Infinitely easier than Claire would have to do. But, and then of course, COVID hit around the same sort of time. So we had to go down to Exeter for this treatment, which is like an hour or so drive away from us. So it's not too bad.
It's the closest to civilization from where we live.
So this, it kind of got put on hold to start with, but then we managed to start treatment maybe halfway through the first lockdown, I think it was, or something like that, like in that summer maybe. Because basically the hospital said, no, we're secure. It's quite good that we can continue with treatment because we're secure. Yeah. We'll make sure you're secure. Because we're doing only one job, we can make sure we do it right, and etc. All the rest of it. So, so then you have to start going down. You talk about all the different options that you've got of how it might go. And then you've got, with the NHS in our area, you get one drug round and one kind of try. And then if you've got some little eggs to freeze or some embryos to freeze, then you get a frozen try as well.
Sure.
So we're like, okay. And then after that, it's like thousands of pounds to have, even another go. So we're like, okay, well, one step at a time. Let's see how it goes. Yeah. So Claire started taking the drugs, and it's basically that. I mean, this is maybe one of the many reasons why I thought I'd want to talk about this, is just to tell people what it's like, I suppose. Because and Claire would say, I've chatted again, just to point this out. I have talked to Claire about talking about this on the podcast. She's like, tell everyone what it's like. For Claire, it wasn't that much of an ordeal. It wasn't pleasant, but it wasn't. The more. I mean, Claire's not like a scared person normally anyway, but the more kind of unsure bit of it was just because she didn't know what it was going to be like, really. So it was a few tablets, to get the cycle in line of where they want. It's a few injections, and then they give you one injection. They're like, this has to be done to the hour, to the minute, at the right time. They're like, we're going to tell you when you're coming in to have the eggs collected, and you're going to take this injection an exact amount of time before that. Set 2 alarms. They're like proper serious, going, you do not want to cock this up.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh fucking hell! Like this is. Woo, this
an injection you do yourself.
Yeah. So there's a
EpiPen sort of.
No, like a big syringe. Like
really?
like a proper. Yeah. I mean, Claire was saying it was because this is the last of like a week or so of injections. It's like a proper regime of drugs to get things where you want to be. So we did all this, and Claire felt okay. She said the tablets to start with made her feel a bit uncomfortable, but generally it wasn't an ordeal to go through that bit. I'm sure most women would be different, I guess, but it wasn't the worst thing in the world. So then we went in for the the harvesting day.
God, that sounds like the wrong word, doesn't it?
It sounds really horrible, but it's like an egg
harvest.
Collection.
The baby harvest.
Go to reap the harvest. So because basically the drugs make you produce like a lot of eggs, like all at once. So then they go in and get them, you know. And I mean, mate, that was probably the most uncomfortable bit of it. You know, that was the most unpleasant bit for Claire. Again, it was. She says it. Looking back, it was manageable. And like if she ever had to go through it again, it would. Now that you know what to expect, it's like, okay, it's not comfortable. It's quite, you know, like there's obviously needles involved, big long needles that, you know, to collect stuff. Yeah, so it's not the nicest thing in the world, but it's doable. So yeah, meanwhile, I get to go and just whack one out in the room on the side, you know, because they're like, oh yeah, we did this at the same time. So not only do I have to be sympathetic towards Claire and be like, oh, you know, I'm sure she's not having a great time of it. Yeah. I've also got to try and focus on the task at hand, you know, which incidentally, man, I mean, I just laugh at this sort of thing anyway, but you go in there and there's like the box file on the table and you're like, oh, I wonder what's in the box file on the table with the white clean armchair and, you know, and all the rest of it. And you open it up, and it's the oldest pornography that must still exist.
Some naughty mags.
Dude, I'm surprised that they haven't sold the one on eBay to fund, like, the entire unit for a year. These things are vintage treasures, you know? real treasures. I mean, I don't know whose job it is to go through and replenish them, I suppose.
Yeah, it is someone's job. What should we order this month?
I mean, those magazines must like wear out as well. They get a bit thumbed, you know. They must like I don't know. All right, I don't know. But
a bit sticky.
But anyway, they said there's like a two-way door in the wall, or a two-way door on a cabinet, I should say, not a walking through door, almost like the size of an oven, like a big oven door in the wall. And then there's a door on the other side, and there's big signs across all of it saying, "When you open this door, the other door might be open." All right. So as if to say, just in case, for some weird reason, you've done what you need to do, all right? And you've just decided, I'm just going to stand hanging in the breeze, you know, just open the door, like in case there's some poor like lab assistant on the other side going, oh, morning.
Oh, bloody hell.
It's not quite as bad as having the plumber there, but it kind of puts you off a little bit.
Well, I can imagine. Yeah. Ooh.
It's not. Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, for what should be.
Is it very clinical? The most clinical one you've ever done.
Yeah. I mean, it was very clinical. Clinical is probably the right word. Yeah, which isn't conducive, to be honest, but it is what it is, you know. And I'll tell you what, it's funny because I don't get. I don't get embarrassed by that sort of thing, you know, especially when you're in like treatment, you know, when it's like a medical thing.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but bless her, the nurse who was looking after us, she was lovely. She was absolutely lovely. She could not even talk about it while looking me in the eye. I was like, so she was an older lady. And I was like, oh, you must have been doing this for a while. And obviously it doesn't balance out, you know, like you've been doing it for a while, but at the same time, it never gets okay to look at someone and say, you know, when you were...
was she just looking around her files? So when Ben was...
you know, just, you know, lots of whistling. So we did this. And then they're like, right, now we go to work. You know, we stir it around a little bit and we, you know, play with it with a pipette and whatever. And we introduce it to the eggs, you know.
Sure.
And they also do this thing called ICSI, which I can't tell you what that stands for, but it's like where they actually take the little sperm and they kind of inject it, you know, and they do like an assisted, like we're going to make sure you get in there kind of thing.
Yeah, get in there, boy.
But I tell you what, man, this is where like when I was saying like, the chances of getting pregnant is actually quite slim. You know, the conditions have to be really right for it to work and all the rest of it. Now at this point we're like, okay, well, we managed to collect, I think it was something like 7 eggs. And immediately like, okay, 6 of those are mature. And then they're like, okay, now 5 of those have been fertilized. And we're like, right. So this is over the course of like, dude, if anything, mate, it's like immediately they just start dropping away. It's like, right, you had 7, right, not 7 anymore, you got 6. Oh, you haven't got 6 anymore, you got 5. And then it was like because then it takes like they leave them to brew, you know, for a few days. They kind of leave them in a cool dark room somewhere to do their thing, you know.
Yeah.
And then the next phone call we got, they're like, okay, there's 2. there's 2 left. And we're like, right, okay, you know, because 3 of them just don't survive, you know, they just don't make it through. And there's not any particular reason. They said it's nothing to do with it being like a dodgy kid, you know, or anything like that. It's not. There's nothing wrong.
He was
with
wrong, and you didn't want that kid.
yeah, sure. Yeah, just honestly, real dickhead. You wouldn't have wanted him. Yeah. But what's frustrating again is that there doesn't have to be anything wrong with either bit or the process. It just sometimes just doesn't happen. You know, actually, the embryologist we saw, she used to do animal embryology.
Yeah,
like with ducks and shit, you know. So and she said that when I came to look at human embryology, she's like, I can't understand how anyone ever gets pregnant, because she's because the embryos look such a mess. They never work. Like they very rarely go how they're supposed to go. So yeah, man, it was a weird kind of ride of like shit. The chances are dropping like all the time. Yeah, you know, and then they were down to 2. And they go, okay, what do you want to do? Do you want to put both in, or put one in? I think maybe they offered us. They said we would offer putting both in, which they wouldn't normally do because they want to try and avoid twins. You know, they don't want you to have multiple pregnancies.
Of course not. Yeah.
So they said, look, they're not going to be any better off out here or inside. So we can wait another couple of days and see what happens. Yeah, and then see what we've got. So we're like, we'll wait and see.
Yeah, and see where seems like the right choice.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So then a couple of days later, they're like, right, we've got one. There you go, we've got one left, ready to go in. You know, that's still healthy. And so that immediately we're thinking, right, so there's nothing to freeze. Like there's no spares. No, this is it. Like it's one shot. You know, and I think the percentage chance of it working is like 25% or lower, or it's not high. It's really not high, man. It's like on the low end of probability. And so like, okay, put it in, you know, and they do. And that bit was dead straightforward, like a little tube, you know, up it goes.
The dart.
Yeah, just the dart, like, you know, aim true and up it goes. And then, dude, I tell you what, they offer like all sorts of counselling services, all that sort of thing, just to help you deal with the process, let alone like the outcome. Because I mean, then they go, right, you got to wait 2 weeks. Wait 2 weeks, and then
just see what happens, and
then take a test. You know, take a pregnancy test. And Christ, man, it's the longest 2 weeks.
Well, I can imagine.
World. Like the longest in the world, you know. It's because you're not really thinking about much else, you know. It's like, holy shit, you know, we need to wait, like, and see how this shows up. So then we did, and then we took Claire took a pregnancy test at the end, and it was positive. And we're like, oh fucking hell, this is amazing. Like, you know, that's incredible, you know. So like, obviously, super stoked. You know, it's been a long old ride. I think by that point it was like 2 years.
Yeah, long old road.
So we were like, yeah, this is great. And obviously we had like a very limited number of people who had to know what we'd been doing. So they were obviously like, you know, what's the score? And we're like, oh yeah, it worked. It worked like first time, you know, which is super rare, and it was incredibly lucky, you know. So we're like, okay, cool. And they give you like a scan at 6 to 7 weeks, I think, which is very early for a scan.
Sure.
So and that's with the IVF clinic. So they take you down there like, okay, we're just looking for a heartbeat, you know, just to see the colour, just like a little LED going off, you know, to make sure. And then they're like, basically, right, off you pop, because, you know,
you're done.
We've done our bit, you know, off you go.
Yeah.
You know, you're on your way. So we did all that, and then we got to, I think we were like 11 weeks. So we were heading in for the first, like the dating scan. And then we lost that baby.
Oh, mate.
And obviously
I was legit thinking like, oh no, that's the happy end.
No, dude, that wasn't the end. That wasn't the end. Dude, yes. So which there isn't really, like, you know, I say things like, oh, it sucked, you know, or, you know, say things like that. There aren't really words for it.
I'm sure you cannot understand it unless you lived it.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Like it really is. It's you know, but this is again something that, you know, we talk to friends who've had similar things happen, and it's like 1 in 3, 1 in 4 pregnancies don't finish, for whatever reason. So it's one of these things that's way more common than anyone likes to, anyone likes to talk about. And like people should, is what everyone who's been through it is always saying, we should definitely be talking about this more. Like, people should know, like, that it's a thing that happens. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, dude. Like that this is something that can happen to perfectly healthy people, perfectly healthy kids, perfectly healthy embryos, whatever. There's nothing obviously wrong. It just doesn't, it just doesn't go through. It just doesn't happen. So yeah, I thought it's probably worth mentioning. I mean, Claire and I got through it, I mean, it happened on a weekend and we were both like, right, this is going to be rough. Like, obviously very upset, it was devastating. Doesn't even seem to come close to like the right sort of words to use. Sure. But we both at least had like the presence of mind to say, right, we're going to need a lot of time. Like this, we're going to need to get through this. We're going to need time together. So obviously we were off work. In fact, that's something as well, because I've got a friend who runs workshops for companies to help deal with this sort of thing happening, which again I'll link, which is actually really, really helpful. So again, if there's people who think that might be useful and they want to link to it, I will link that in the description for this, because she does really good work. Just pointing out things like how people really should get time off work when this happens, and a lot of times people don't. Yeah, dude. I mean, and not just from a physical side of things, but from an emotional side of things as well. Like, it's it took maybe. I mean, everyone's different. Again, everyone's different. Yeah. We were like a week. After a week, we'd maybe stopped so much crying. Like so much spontaneous crying about it. We got to and we were like, okay, I think we're almost coming to acceptance now. I mean, just not without getting stuck into details, like we had like a little burial for ourselves and stuff, So without getting into details, we kind of had a little moment where we sort of said goodbye to
acknowledging it.
Yeah, exactly.
This is something that's happened, and that's the end of that. Yeah.
But I mean, another thing that I wanted to mention, man, because this is something that Katie, my friend who runs the workshops, the support workshops, talks about, is just the language that is used. Man, I didn't realize, again, it's one of these things where you think, well, that can't be right, it can't be like that anymore, until you encounter it. So you've got things like when Claire rang the doctors to say, look, because we had a couple of signs in the couple of days leading up to us losing the baby that we could kind of see maybe what was coming, and so the doctors are saying things like, oh well, at least you can get pregnant.
Sure.
And Claire's like, well, this was IVF. And they're like, and then it kind of goes, because I know that it's kind of come from a place of trying to be supportive.
Yeah,
but
of course.
And it sounds really picky. Like, it sounds like really, don't use that word around, or don't use that language around me. It can be really distressing. Yeah. Because it's like, I mean, if you had a 2-year-old that tragically died, you wouldn't take any comfort from someone saying, "Oh, at least you can have kids."
Yeah,
it's mental. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It seems mental when you kind of extrapolate it out. It seems absolutely crazy. So there is no comfort in knowing that you can be pregnant when you've lost. So I'll tell you what, that's a tip for free. Anyone listening to this, if they ever come across some friend or family who loses a kid, that's not something to say. Like that just
Don't
isn't.
Say that.
It's just that must be really hard. That must suck, because it does. So there is no like, oh well, at least you can try again. It's no, dude. It just doesn't, like.
Yeah.
That's not as nice as you think it is. So
no, I'm sure it's not.
So just to say that, So we went through all of this. We're kind of approaching the final furlong of this. I don't know if this is an interesting story, man, but I feel like
it needs to get happier. I'm feeling sad.
Well. So we had all these conversations, man. We're like, okay, well, when do we start IVF again? Like, because obviously we're back in the same boat. We're basically back to square one. After all those months of waiting for treatment, waiting for COVID to pass so we could go in, waiting for like a month to start, and then another month to go through the first bit, and another month to wait. It's time and time and time. So then we're like, okay, well, not only is it going to be a long time before we can get back in, but also it's money, man. I mean, like we say, it's thousands of pounds,
right.
you know, to get stuff. And, you know, we had been prepared for this as an eventuality. So, you know, we were getting there financially. We were like, okay, well, this is within our reach now to do this. We spoke to the consultant, did like a Zoom call. Obviously, she was very sympathetic. You know, she's like, right, well, you know, keep trying. Because, like we said, there's nothing obviously wrong with either of you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And bless her, she didn't say like, at least, you know, you can get pregnant. But it was, but you know what? There was a little bit of us that kind of saw that little embryo, you know, that little baby as being like a messenger, maybe. Yeah. Which I know sounds wishy-washy, maybe, but it was kind of, you know, we say to each other like that. This was the one who came along to say, hey, it's going to be all right. Like, you can do this. It's possible. Like, it's possible. It is possible. You know, we're allowed to say that to ourselves. Yeah. No one else is. So yeah, we're like, oh shit. Okay. Well, we were lining it all up. We're like, right, it's going to be like summertime before we can start going again, or whenever it was. And dude, we literally got to the last point where we were about to start another cycle of IVF. Yeah. And then Claire just was late, and we were like, and it took. I think she didn't. I'm sure she could correct me on this. I don't think Claire realised, but I mean, dude, I haven't really dived into what it emotionally feels like to go through this, because it becomes like a monthly like event. Do you know what I mean? It's like you can't not be thinking about it. You can't not be having one eye on what the date is and going, are we like
should know soon,
anywhere near? Yeah, exactly, dude. Yeah, man. So I was like, I'm pretty sure like 5 or 6 days past where we're expecting you to be. And so, Claire took like 2 tests and lo and behold, she's on the way. Yeah, man. And that's the happy ending. I think. I mean, there is. Well, dude, it never ends.
Thank God.
Yeah, man. I mean, there is really no ending, I guess, to this, because, mate, we're not going to pivot into being a parenting podcast. All right, the perfectly positioned pivot to a parenting podcast. No, exactly.
Well, you could.
No, sure. But man, it never ends. I mean, there's always that little bit of worry. And there's always that little bit of thought about it. But, mate, we've been scanned. It's, as I say, we're into the 3rd trimester now. So we are well on the way. Like, you know, we are.
And all is healthy.
Everything's healthy. Man, yeah, dude. I mean, No, we probably won't end up doing this, but this is literally like an off official podcast. I could talk to you about all the sorts of things that we've been through, man. And some of it interesting, some of it not. Because like the NHS continue to be great and weird and odd with what they test and what they think and what they assume. Like the default options for a lot of different things are just super, super weird. Like, sometimes, mate, there's been times where we felt like we're not being respected at all, to be perfectly honest. And there are times when it's been amazing. So there's been a lot of, I mean, dude, we went for a hypnobirthing class yesterday, which I won't tell you about it now. I'll tell you about it off podcast, maybe.
Sure.
But that's not what it sounds like, but it's definitely interesting. So dude, all of a sudden I'm like thinking about buying clothes, and you know, we've got to be honest, mate, we've got baby clothes coming out of the arse. You know, we've got people have been so generous, but we've got too many clothes. We have too many clothes for little Bungle.
Not that I've been through it myself, but obviously next door I had a baby recently, so I know the amount of things that people give. I've seen the piles of clothes and stuff. A lot of it is just stuff. It does just this things, for this. Man. It does that for that. Yeah.
I mean, I've started finding things like snot suckers, where you sort of use your mouth and you suck snot out of your kid's nose with a tube.
So into a different tube?
Mate, there's a filter. There's apparently a filter in the middle of it. I don't know. I will never find out firsthand.
Because you'll never buy one, hopefully. That is an awful sounding thing.
I don't know, mate. They reassure you. They're like, oh, yeah. That's like there's disposable filters, you know. So it's all clean. It's sterile. It's clean.
It's been washed. It's clean. It's sterile.
It's like, why would you possibly use that when you can get things like those little bulb, like the little pod ones that you just squeeze and then suck out like into a little pocket, and you don't have to use your mouth. You don't. No one is looking at that and going, I'll just suck that out with my own air power.
I don't need anything like that in my mouth.
Try it, dude. Try it on an adult. Be like, go to Callie and be like, hey, you got a bit bunged up? Let me try this for you.
That is horrendous news.
It's the most disgusting thing I think I've ever seen. And mate, and there's more to come. People, everyone's very keen to talk to you about their kids when you tell them you got a kid on the way.
Sure.
So everyone's
got their own advice to give.
Yeah. I think.
Do you know what? I heard the best advice, which was given to Rachel by one of the people I work with, and the advice was, my advice is don't listen to anybody else's advice because your child will be different from everybody else's. So there you go. Man. There's my advice to you.
But what happens if I don't take that advice?
No!
I think there's we divide by zero and the universe collapses into a little black spot, doesn't it?
The walls start folding in.
Yeah, man, yeah. So, dude, like I say, man, I'm not going to, it's not something that I've been trying to keep deliberately secret off the podcast, but...
no, sure.
But this is something, like I say, I'm really sorry to regular listeners who just aren't interested in this in the slightest. Because there are people out there who are like, oh, fucking kids, I don't, who cares? But you know what? For like anybody who might be interested, and I mean, I'm not an expert. I am not an expert, but if anybody, I don't know, wanted to ask a question about anything, man, just hit me up, whatever. Like, perfect strangers, if you want to, I don't know. Like, I'm not pretending that I'd be useful to anybody, but you never know.
Fair enough.
And because no one ever talks about it, and no one ever gets like the lowdown on what it's like to go through things like this.
Well, mate, I don't feel like I can really add much to your story because, we're not having kids, so
yeah, that's fair.
That's
enough.
what I can really say about it. Like,
so, dude, I mean, I don't, this is, and I'll tell you now, we can edit this. Just to peek behind the curtain, we can definitely edit this if you don't want. But I mean, is that a decision you guys have made? Like, just we do not want to have kids. Like, there is no plan. It's something we don't want to do. Pretty
much. I mean, when I started going out with Callie, which is 10 years ago now, she was very upfront about that. That was very much, probably within the first year, she mentioned, like, by the way, I'm never having kids. She will never convince me that that's something I want to do. And she put more thought, I think she put more thought into not having kids than people do to having kids. Like, here's all the reasons I don't want them, and I'll never, ever want them, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's not my body to put a baby in and all that sort of stuff.
Fair enough, yeah.
I've always been okay with it. I'd never say like, well, you have to have one because I want one. Sure. That's completely unfair. And maybe that's how it worked in the olden days. Like, well, if you want to be my wife, well, you have to have kids.
Yeah, sure.
And that's just not the case. But honestly, mate, the thoughts haven't gone that. I've never given it much more thought than, well, we're not having them. So.
Sure,
like I say, I haven't got much more to add. Like, that's
really interesting, man. I think, because to be honest, I think that is something that people should talk about as well. Honestly, and I'm not trying. I'm not trying to drag out your story for content because I genuinely think it is important. Because, like, with my brother and his wife, I think they want to have kids maybe one day. They're not having kids yet. I'll let him speak for himself if it's any. I think I've got it. I think I've got that as accurate as it's going to be. But I know it really winds them up when people ask that question. When are you having kids? When are you going to have kids? Because it isn't for everyone.
I'm far enough back where it's like, when are you guys getting married? So I'm like before that's on the scale. Like, that's not on the minds yet. So, it's, and like I said, I'd never dunk on people for having kids because the only thing that, like, breaks my heart more than anything is when, people like yourself who want kids struggle or can't have them. Like, that's horrible because I think, if we wanted them, maybe we could have them, and that's not fair for people that live for that. Some people start families very early, don't they? Early 20s or, that sort of thing. And that's what they want from life, is like a big family. And that's totally fair enough. And I would never, ever dunk on it because that's fine. And it's just, and I think a lot of like, I don't know if it's a millennial thing because sadly we do fall into the millennial time frame.
Oh yes.
But whether it's this like thing of not, I feel like we're the generation that hasn't grown up in many ways, not in the same way our parents did, because our parents would have been in a house with a baby probably 10 years before us. You know, they would
yeah.
have had houses early 20s, and they would have had kids. You know, my parents did. They had me and Matt in their 20s, and I'm sure, you know, a lot of other parents are the same, because their parents were like wartime parents, so they would have had kids, you know, probably when they're late teenagers. So it's just like it's just an expected thing. But because we didn't have that, and because like getting settled as a millennial, I think, is a lot harder, because house prices are nuts, and you can't get 0-hour contract jobs and all this sort of stuff. And I'm not trying to be like, ooh, feel sorry for our generation. It's like, no, it's just different. And that's why people are having babies later. It's like, most friends that I know had babies over 30, not in their 20s. My friends that do have babies are in their 30s. So, and and you're like that too. You're in your 30s and you've had them now, so you're just another statistic.
Just another, I was going to say, just another pleb, just another peon,
But that's pretty much as far as the thought's gone. We're not having kids. The plan with that is to. There's not really much of a plan, but I did say to Kay, like, look, if we're not having kids, we need to make sure we make the most of that. So going away on holiday more, which sounds really dumb, but going away more and having more personal luxuries, like, well, there's no reason why I shouldn't buy this, because the income is somewhat disposable, and there's a good name for it, which Callie picked up the other day, which was DINKs, which is dual income, no kids.
That sounds so on the edge of just being offensive somewhere.
So we always class ourselves as a couple of dinks. Just a couple of dinks.
Good for you. That's your word. I'm not going to call you it.
A couple of dinks with no responsibility.
See, dude, I think that's really admirable, though. The fact that you're not just sliding into the lifestyle of not having kids. So you're actively saying, right, if we're not having kids, then we're going to do this instead.
Yeah,
I think that's
been hard with the pandemic, obviously.
Sure.
But try and do more stuff.
It's a good mindset to have for the years to come. I mean, life is long. Do you know what I mean? COVID's going to be with us for a bit, but it's not going to be forever. So it'll be into your 40s and into your 50s going, right, what do we do? Because we've got the time and the resources to do it. Yeah, good definitely. For you, man.
But that, like I said, that's pretty much as far as the thought's gone. There is no overarching theme or real reason, I guess, other than Callie doesn't want them, and I've never been fussed. And I think it would go both ways. If Callie was like, I really want babies, then we'd probably end up having them. But she doesn't. It's not my body, and I'm totally fine not having them. So it's a done deal.
Well, it's good for you, dude. I'm glad that, because I guess. Well, we'd have to get into this, but I guess that you either want to decide one way or the other, don't you? You don't, it's the one thinks one thing and one thinks the other. That's the trouble, isn't it? I guess. But
we're very much on the same wavelength about it, which is good.
Yeah, man. Well, dude, I mean, like I say, I don't want this to become like the parenting podcast, and I'm going to try and make a bit of a parenting podcast pledge to the patrons out there that I'm going to try not to be that guy in episodes like, oh yeah, and this is what happened today about, antenatal classes or whatever. But yeah, man, so you have to tell me, like, give me a slap on the wrist if anything starts drifting a bit into like, and you'll never guess what little Bungle did today.
Bungle.
Oh, mate, we've had to, like, because the thing is, we know what she's called, but we keep calling her by her name to each other. So we have to be really careful not to let that come out when we talk to other people.
Must be tricky.
Yeah, so we can like Flash Gordon, Gertrude, Bungle. Like, we have all these names so that if we do accidentally slip out the real name, we go, just another ridiculous name like all those other ones.
Ben Jr. Oh,
yeah, little Ben Jr.
for a girl as well. Little Ben Jr.
Dear, I think that's probably everything for this show, man. So I know it's been a bit of a one theme episode, I suppose, but we make no promises about being super interesting. It is what it is, really.
It is.
Very
well done.
We'll leave it there. Like, if people want to have a chat with you about your Dink life, where can they find you online?
They can find me at Tom the Dink on all social medias.
Oh man, we better register that like straight away.
No, at Bite Review everywhere. But where can they find Ben?
Big Daddy Ben at BenjiOneLung or BenjiOneLung.com. Or you can find us on ITSBUP.com if you want to send us a message or talk to us about anything really, anything that's actually interesting through ITSBUP.com. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thank you for getting this far. Thank you for sticking with us. Here's to a hopefully podcast life not changing too much in the next few months. But who knows? Maybe I'll start making sense when I get super tired. We'll see.
Maybe.
We'll see. All right. That's all for now.
Right.
All right.
Goodbye.
Bye.